Hey, what's going on, guys? Your boy. Oh, nope, overshot it. Back up a little bit. Here we go. Hey, what's going on, guys? Your boy Chaim Samuels. I am a stand-up comedian, and today I am presenting you with the 5 greatest comedians of all time. Now, a lot of people, when making these lists, like to preface it by saying, listen, this is just a subjective list. It's my personal thoughts. If you disagree with me, that's fine. This is just how I personally think. But no, I'm not gonna preface this video by saying that, because honestly, I've actually put together an objective list. I know many people have tried to do that, but today I've actually successfully put together an objective list of the greatest 5 comedians of all time. And honestly, if you disagree with this, well, you're not being very objective. So these are my personal best. These are who I think are the greatest comedians of all time. Comedians that nobody can come close to. And before we get to that, hit that subscribe button already. Just do it. Stop. Just stop. Then click it already. Without further ado, guys, these are who I think are the top 5 greatest stand-up comedians of all time. Let's do it. Number 5 is going to be Norm Macdonald. How do I describe Norm Macdonald? Norm Macdonald is almost a parody of old-timey comics. Just the way he delivers his jokes and his cadence, it's almost as if he is parroting old-timey comics like Bob Hope or Henny Youngman. But at the same time, it seems almost as if he is giving an homage to those comics as well. There is just something so uniquely specific about the way that he tells a joke, to the point where he could tell a joke that's not even remotely funny and still make you laugh your ass off. You can see this mostly on shows like Conan or any of these late night shows where he'll just go into this joke that's obviously not funny, and you know at the end it's never going to pay off, but at the same time he is just making you laugh so hard. And I really think that is the mark of a great comic. In order for his material to really be funny, you kind of have to do the Norm Macdonald voice, and I think that is absolutely the mark of an insanely good comedian. I also like the fact that Norm Macdonald has always been somebody who has just said whatever he wanted to say, and it didn't matter what the consequences were. The fact when he was on SNL, he got fired, I think, for saying too many OJ jokes, and that is also part of what I appreciate so much about this comic. So in my opinion, that's what makes him number 5 on this top 5 greatest comedians of all time list. Number 4 is going to be Brian Regan. If I'm being objective, Brian Regan, I think, has made me laugh the hardest of every comedian that's been on this list. There's something just so infectious about the way that he tells a joke. And besides for the fact that he keeps his entire set clean, which I think is pretty unique, but there are other comedians that tend to do that, there is just such a silliness that Brian Regan brings to his comedy. And I think this is something that has kind of been missing in comedy for a really long time, this sense of silliness. I think there's kind of this wave that's been infused into comedy where everybody is trying to take themselves a little too serious. Everybody is always trying to say something profound, because I think in today's era, comedians are kind of looked at as somewhat of like folk heroes. And I think we're losing this sense and idea of silliness, not taking ourselves too serious. Brian Regan just manages to infuse this silliness, and he does it with such a sense of love for what he's doing. And I can't help but just respect the crap out of him for doing that. He is just, in my opinion, one of the most underrated comedians, insanely funny. I always just lose myself to how funny this guy is and how he's able to take such small and ridiculous things and blow them way out of proportion. In my opinion, one of the most underrated comedians of all time, and deserves to be number 4 on this list. Number 3, Patrice ONeill. I think how most of his contemporaries describe Patrice is when he walked into a room, he absolutely owned it. There was just something so raw and genuine about Patrice ONeill's style. And you can see this through his countless hours of interviews with Opie and Anthony and his stand-up. There was just something so in your face, to the point where even if you were offended or disagreed with what he was saying, you couldn't help but laugh. He could say the most ridiculous and outlandish things and still have you on the floor, because that's how great of a comedian he was. I think he did something that so many comedians try to do, and that's bring your entirety up on stage with you. Patrice ONeill was exactly who he was on stage as he was off stage. You weren't getting another side of him, you were getting him. And I don't think there's any comedian who has quite brought this type of raw energy up on stage like Patrice ONeill. Besides for the fact that he was also an insanely talented comedian, the fact that half of his specials were unscripted and he would just make them up on the spot. I mean, that takes just such a unanimously talented individual. And really just so unfortunate that he left us so early, because the mark that he made on comedy is so monumental. The fact that more and more people are discovering him is really just a testament to how insanely amazing and influential he was. And obviously just taken too early from us. And that's why he deserves number 3 on this list. Number 2 on this list is Dave Chappelle. I mean, what can I really say? Dave Chappelle, one of the smartest and most perceptive comedians of our time. The guy was one of the biggest comedians over the early 2000s, and at a moment he just decided to disappear because he wasn't willing to waver what he believed in. And that really shows in his comedy. I mean, from an early age, it was pretty apparent. Dave Chappelle was like a comedy savant. There wasn't anybody like him. At such a young age, he was already like selling out arenas. The fact that he has come back now and he is still absolutely crushing it really is a testament to how really good of a comedian he is. I mean, there's one joke that he tells where he literally tells you the punchline. I don't remember which special. It's one of his newer specials, so check it up on Netflix. It's there. And he tells you the punchline. And he says, "I'm still gonna make you laugh." That's how confident he is. And he does. He absolutely does. And you don't see it coming. It's insane. It really is insane. I mean, that's how good of a comedian he is. He could literally tell you the punchline at the beginning and still have you laughing. There's nobody I can say that is as naturally gifted of a comedian as Dave Chappelle. I can go on, but there's absolutely nobody like Dave Chappelle. I don't believe that there ever will, and why he deserves the number 2 spot. Number 1. Now this is going to be a little bit of a controversial pick. Louis C.K. Now I understand that if you're a bit uncomfortable by this person's questionable past and that really deters you from listening to his comedy, I understand. But for me personally, I just want to talk about his comedy and why I think he's the greatest of all time. Part of why I think Louis is the greatest comedian of all time is the fact that I would compare him to someone like Tom Brady. If you're unfamiliar, Tom Brady is a quarterback from the NFL, widely agreed upon to be just the greatest of all time. The fact that he won his 7th Super Bowl last year, it's unanimous. He is just the best. Now the reason that I put Louis over someone like Dave Chappelle is because I compared Dave Chappelle to another quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. Now Aaron Rodgers is also an incredibly talented quarterback, also one of the best. But the reason why Tom Brady stands above the rest is because someone like Aaron Rodgers, when he came out of college, everybody understood that Aaron Rodgers was just a naturally talented quarterback. I mean, he is one of the best throwers of the balls. Like last year, he won MVP because clearly he's such a talented quarterback. Everybody can see that. He's like in his late 30s, and the fact that he is still throwing and playing the way that he is, naturally, he is such a gifted quarterback. Tom Brady, on the other hand, coming out of college, was not widely known as a particularly good quarterback. And when he came into the NFL, he was drafted in the 6th round, like 199. Nobody looked at Tom Brady as being one of the best. And the reason why Tom Brady stands above the rest is, honestly, he is very talented, but what makes him different and stand out is the fact that he will continuously work harder than anybody else on the field. His work ethic is insane. The fact that he's 43 right now, and he is going into this season wanting to win another Super Bowl. At 43, you'd be like, just retire already. You've won 7 Super Bowls. Nobody's coming close. He does not care because his work ethic just has him working harder than anybody else on the field. And that's part of what made him just be the best quarterback of all time. And that's how I look at Louis C.K. Dave Chappelle is such a naturally talented comedian. Louis, on the other hand, if you look at some of his old stuff, he doesn't particularly stand out. You wouldn't look at his stand-up and be like, this guy is one of the greatest comedians of all time. What Louis did was he chipped away for years, perfecting his comedy, making himself better. He had been doing the same material for a really long time, and then at one point he just decided he was going to write a special every single year. He decided to do that, which in my opinion is part of what propelled him just to being one of the most uniquely insightful comedians of all time. The way that he dissects things, there's no one else to compare him to. He will just take the darkest, most horrific thing and somehow make you laugh at. He's also contributed to TV by giving us shows like Louie, just a show that we haven't seen before, and Horace and Pete, which I think is one of the most underrated masterpieces of our time. There is nobody that is quite as insightful and hard-hitting as Louie. The way that he could tell a story and have you crying in one moment and have you laughing your ass off in another. I just haven't seen any comedian that comes close. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, there is a story he tells about the time that he went to Russia. And just go and watch that, because it is just so insanely emotional and funny at the same time that I can't see anybody else doing it but Louis. Those are my top 5 favorite comedians of all time. Thank you so much for watching. Now, if you don't, if you really guys really don't mind, I don't even really know how you got in here or let me speak for this long. Please leave.